Don't fill your mind with all the bad things that might still happen. Stay focused on the present situation and ask yourself why it's so unbearable and can't be survived. Marcus Aurelius. Before we dive into the quote and the meaning of it and an example from my life, Marcus Aurelius is one of my favorite people of all time. I first discovered him, I think, 3 years ago at this point, but I didn't really start diving into who he was as a person and his work until about 2 years ago. 2,000 years ago, this guy or this man was living. He was the emperor of Rome, 19-year reign. The fact that his works have survived this long and are more relevant now than they ever have tells you everything you need to know about him and all the other men back in the day like him, the other Stoics, other philosophers. It's just incredible that this knowledge, these quotes have been passed down for as long as they have, and they're still impacting generations all these centuries later. Absolutely unbelievable. Don't fill your mind with all the bad things that might still happen. When I read this quote 20 minutes ago, I had this one event pop into my head that I experienced 2 years ago. It was my first ever listing as a real estate agent. So I was representing the seller for the first ever time. And I remember we were dealing with a buyer and a buyer's agent that wasn't the smoothest transaction, I'll say. And the buyer had an FHA loan, which is a government-backed loan. So the condition of the property needs to be a certain way by the time of closing. And with an FHA loan, chipping paint on the property is a no-no. That has to be addressed some way or another. So my seller agreed to clean up the chipping paint and paint over all the peeling paint on the exterior of the property, which is all in the front. So a couple weeks after he was supposed to be done, the buyers randomly drove by one day and I saw this one tiny spot on the eave of the house that he missed, that he forgot to paint. It was just one little section that would probably take 5 minutes to do. The buyer's agent texted me that morning and told me, not in the nicest way possible, she made it sound like a humongous deal, which I think triggered me. The rest of that day, after I received that text from the buyer's agent, that was the only thing I could think about. I was thinking about like, oh, what else did he miss? I was thinking about like, oh, is this going to kill the deal? Like, is he going to be able to do this in time? My brain just kept going off this deep end and thinking about worst case scenario. When I look back at it 2 years later, this wasn't a life or death situation. This was not a big deal whatsoever. The fact of the matter is my seller took care of that like that day or the next day. It was done. It was over with. And I made a big deal out of nothing. That entire day, I couldn't focus on anything else. I actually couldn't do any of my other work because I was so focused on that particular issue. And it wasn't even an issue. There's things that happen in every single real estate transaction. When that happened, I was like, dude, I can't do that anymore. Like, what am I doing? I'm wasting my entire day thinking about something that's just not a big deal at all. And that's what this whole quote is. Don't fill your mind with all the bad things that might still happen, because as humans, we all anticipate things that might happen. In the reality, those things never actually come to fruition. That's what fear is. That's why that's why fear exists, because we're anticipating something that's probably not even going to happen, but our brain tries to convince us that it will happen. And therefore, most of us never dive into that fear. Back when I was cold calling for the start of my real estate career, I was scared. It took me an hour to dial the first number because I was scared of how the person that picked up the phone would react. I was scared that they were going to swear at me or hang up the phone. All of those were going through my head. We all anticipate bad things that might happen. Just stay focused on the present situation. Control what you can control and ask yourself why it's so unbearable and it can't be survived. It's probably not a life or death situation. It's probably going to be something you're not even going to be thinking about a week from now or a day later or a year later. If it's something that you're not going to be thinking about a month from now or even a week later, then don't put much mental energy into it. That is what I have been doing the last couple years, and it has transformed my day-to-day tremendously. I'm much more relaxed. My life has just improved so much. And because of quotes like this, because I've internalized quotes like this. So one last time, don't fill your mind with all the bad things that might still happen. Stay focused on the present situation and ask yourself why it's so unbearable and can't be survived. Marcus Aurelius. Focus on what you can control and don't anticipate something bad happening before it happens. You're going to be a lot happier because of that.